Our scripture reading today is Genesis chapter 40, verses 1 through 8. This is really just a portion of it. We'll be reading most of Genesis chapter 40 throughout the course of the sermon here. But Genesis chapter 40, verses 1 through 8. Sometime later, the cupbearer and baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. And they had been in custody for some time. Each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." May the Lord add his blessing to the reading and hearing of his word. And again, there's a lot more to this story, and we're gonna get the rest of the story as we go along here. Just channeling my inner Paul Harvey today, and you'll get the rest of the story. Many of you are old enough to remember who Paul Harvey is. Some of you not, but never mind. We're talking about friendship as part of our identity, who we are in this world, who we are as followers of Jesus. Identity is deeper. It gets used in a lot of different ways today. We talk about different kinds of identities, of cultural identities and ethnic identities and national identities and sexual identities. But the identity that we're talking about through this series, as we're looking at the life of Joseph, is our identity that goes deeper than all of that, to the core of who we are as human beings created in the image of God, and as followers of Jesus Christ who are continually being sanctified, that is, cleaned up and cleaned out and built up by the Holy Spirit. Who are we? And we see in Joseph an example of that. Joseph was a dreamer among skeptics, and we can be dreamers among skeptics as well. Joseph lived as a freed man, even among slaves, even when he was a slave. And we have that in our identity as well, to live as free people, no matter what the bondage of our external circumstances might be. And today we're looking at this notion of friendship, that even in circumstances that dramatically worked and pushed against friendship, Joseph was a friend among prisoners. Friendship's an important concept in the Bible, and it's one that we don't talk about a lot, to be honest. We talk a lot about love in Bible studies and Sunday school and preaching and devotional booklets. You can find tons of things about love. You don't see as much about friendship. And yet the Bible devotes a lot of time to talking about friendship and the importance of friendship. Well, we're going to start. I got a bunch of verses, and we're just going to go through them about friendship in the Bible, and we'll just work through them that way rather than me telling you what they're going to say and then reading them and then telling you again. I'll just do it once. That'll be better for everybody. So, a friend, according to Proverbs, a lot in Proverbs about friendship. A friend loves at all times, and kinsfolk are born to share adversity. The first aspect of friendship is that of love. And the Bible is clear about that in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Friendship is a way of loving. It's a kind of loving, and it's a deep level of loving. David and Jonathan were repeatedly highlighted for their friendship and the relationship that they had as friends in the Old Testament. Jesus himself talked about the importance of friendship. We undervalue it sometimes, or we underteach about it sometimes, I think, because we focus so much on love. In that chapter in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, where Paul talks about love is patient, love is kind, love doesn't envy, love doesn't boast, it isn't proud, it isn't rude, it bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things, love never fails. And we focus on that love, and it's crucially important. Because Jesus said the greatest commandment is love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second greatest, love your neighbor as yourself. And everywhere that word love is used, in the Greek word that's translated love is the word agape. And it's one of at least three. There's actually four different, I said three this morning at Chester. There's actually four different words in the Greek that get translated as love in English. And it's four different kinds of love. And I'm only going to deal with two of them today. One is this agape. And agape, as we see it presented most fully in 1 Corinthians 13, is a kind of love that goes deeper than emotions. It's not based on emotions. It's not based on circumstances. It's not based on feelings. It's not based on what other people are saying or doing to us. It is an attitude of the heart. It is an act of the will that not only indicates how we feel and think, but also how we live and treat and act toward other people. And it is independent of how they live and treat and act toward us. That agape love. Another word for love, and that is often used, but not as much in the Bible, and in the Greek is the word philios, which means friendship. It is in ancient Greek thinking, friendship, philios, was a higher order of love than agape was. The highest expression of love was the love of friend to friend in Greek thinking and in Roman thinking at this time of Jesus. Bible gives a little more emphasis on agape, and so that's what we talk about a lot. But we can't forget the friendship part. And we see Jesus emphasizing that and highlighting that even. And we're going to see some of his words in a few minutes. But if you remember at the end of the book of John, after Peter has betrayed and denied Jesus, remember that? Peter's like, oh, if everyone else leaves you, I'll never leave you. If everyone else betrays you, I'll never betray you. I'm the most devoted follower. Jesus, I love you. And then as soon as things got tough, Peter bolted and lied. I never knew the man. Don't know anything about him. Nope, not me. Never been with him. Not me. And Jesus is restoring him. And he's reconciling him. And in the book of John, that's one of the last things we see Jesus doing, is reconciling Peter and bringing him back into the fold. And in the English, it reads something like this. Jesus asks Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Peter says, yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my sheep. Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Tend my lambs. Simon, do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Care for my sheep. Now, that's how it reads in English. If we translated the Greek literally, or actually just transliterated the words love, it would read this way. Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you philios me? Do you love me as a friend? Are you my friend, Simon? And Simon responds, yes, Lord, you know that I agape you. I have this attitude of love toward you. But Jesus says, Simon, son of John, do you philios me? Are you my friend? Jesus here in reconciling with Peter is emphasizing their friendship. Are you my friend? That is the evidence. And your evidence of your friendship with me is how you treat other people. But that's what Jesus is asking about. That's what Jesus is looking for. Friendship is important. Important in good times, and kinsfolk are born to share adversity. Friendship in bad times as well, through thick and through thin. Another important aspect of friendship is that our friends affect us. They shape us. Proverbs says this, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Yeah, you hang out with fools, bad things are going to happen. Don't hang out with foolish people. The writer of Proverbs is saying here today, make your friends among wise people, and they will make you wise. This is the simplest aspect of this is the simple reality that who we are friends with affects who we are as people. Our friends shape our character. Our friends affect our decisions and our decision making. Our friends shape who we are in our relationships with other people. And Proverbs makes it very clear, make friends of wise people so that you become wise. Because if you make friends with foolish people, you will have trouble. And every parent knows this. as we watch our children making friends out in the world and we think, oh my goodness, they're hanging out with so-and-so. Oh, they're going to be in jail, you know? They're gonna be in a car wreck. They're gonna be, all of these crazy things we think might happen if they're hanging out with the wrong person. Now, we need to put a caveat in here, and this is an important caveat. Jesus makes it clear that he wants his followers, his disciples, to be friends with everyone, the wise and the foolish, the sinners and the righteous. But Jesus is talking to disciples. He's talking to people whom he expects, and we're going to talk about this next week, who he expects to be mature and growing up in their faith. And Jesus isn't saying, go out and make friends with people who are going to lead you down the wrong road. Jesus is saying, be secure and strong enough in your identity with me that you can go out and make friends with sinners, make friends with foolish people, and you influence them rather than them dragging you down. Jesus doesn't want us to go out and make friends with folks who are going to drag us down. Jesus wants us to be strong enough in our identity and our relationship with him that no matter who we are friends with, that we can build relationships with knuckleheads even and help the knuckleheads become wise rather than them helping us become knuckleheads. I identify as a knucklehead sometimes too. All right, so that caveat there, but at the root, particularly in our formative years, particularly whether that's our biological age or our spiritual age, it's important to walk and build friendships with wise people because our friends affect who we become. Another way it says it in Proverbs is this. This is one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. It just occurred to me this morning as I was preaching at Chester that another way you can paraphrase this verse is make friends with folks who will help you be less dull. Which I kind of like that, Our friends shape us. And iron sharpening iron, that's friction, right? That's rubbing, you know how you sharpen a knife when you're sharpening a sword or a knife or whatever. We've sharpened more knives than swords around here. You're rubbing it against a hard, rough surface that sometimes can even create sparks. And the idea is to chip and wear things away, imperfections. And that requires pain sometimes. That requires suffering sometimes. But that's the value of friendship. That even when the relationship is tough, we're still shaping each other. We're still sharpening each other. We're still helping each other remove imperfections from our lives. Not just in the good times, but in the ways we run into and bump into and rub against each other. And sometimes it's comfortable and sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it feels bad, but that's what friends are for. To shape us and mold us and help rub away and wear away those imperfections that are in our life. As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. And this is a powerful verse. This is a hard one to really love because it hurts. But wounds from a friend can be trusted. One of the values of friendship is that that's a person that you trust enough, that you love enough, and they love you enough that they can tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. Even when it hurts, even when it causes mental or emotional or relational or even physical anguish. That they can say to me, Scott, when you do this, when you say that, when you act like this, when you're not doing that, when you're all of these things that say, this is a problem and you need to fix that. You're heading down a wrong road and you need to change direction. You're causing harm to people that you claim to love. You need to stop. Or you need to start doing this other thing. And friends can say that. They can tell us when we're getting off track. And they can speak words that wound, that hurt, that make us mad as all get out. But because they're friends, we can trust that those wounds are going to help us. It's the wound of a surgeon, not the wound of an assassin. Friendship does that for us. Jesus himself, when he talked about the highest expressions of love and faith, put it in the context of friendship. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. He unites them here. That love is agape, but he's talking about friendship. The highest expression of agape love is to be a good friend who sacrificially loves those that are around you. Friendship in the Bible is important. Just a couple more here. The one who forgives an offense seeks love, but whoever repeats a matter separates close friends. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. We all screw up. We all have imperfections. As much as we want to sharpen each other up and remove imperfections, no matter how much we do, there's going to be imperfections. And our enemies and those who don't care, those who despise, those who are indifferent, they love to highlight our imperfections. The mistakes that we made, they want to, put on blast. Is that I don't know what the word is these days. Is that the right word? I don't know. Young hip people can tell me later. We used to say shine a spotlight on it. There's other ways to say it now, but they want to highlight that. And in this day and age with the social media and how it works, they can dig back through anything you ever said that was recorded online and say, see what an awful thing this person said 25 years ago, blah, 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 blah. That's not how friends act. Friends know we have imperfections. And they want to help us grow beyond those and wear those away over time. But in the meantime, they don't highlight them, they cover them. It's the difference between Ham, when he walked in on his father Noah, who'd passed out drunk in his tent, and he was naked, drunk, lying on top of his bed in his tent. And Ham walks in, and the first thing Ham does when he sees his father passed out, drunk, naked, is goes out and spreads the word. Tells his brothers, Dad's in there passed out naked. Can you believe it? He did that. His brothers, Shem and Joseph, walked in backwards holding up a blanket and covered up their father's nakedness, covered up his shame without even looking at it. That's the difference between a friend and an enemy. One who will guard and protect, not to be in denial about, not to pretend that our flaws don't exist, but to not highlight them and to guard us and protect us, particularly our public reputation when it comes to those things. That's what friends do. Now, this is a tall order. In the best of circumstances, it's hard to be a good friend sometimes, but we often find ourselves not in the best of circumstances. I don't know whether anyone in this room has found yourself in the same circumstance of Joseph, as being in jail, as being in prison. I have not personally. I'm not saying that as a joke or to brag in some way. One of the best preachers I ever heard, a guy named Brent Smith. I think it's been a long time ago, and he'd been in and out of jail. And he began his sermons by saying, when he was addressing a new crowd, he said, "Who here is glad you're not in prison today?" And you'd see a whole bunch of folks raise their hands. And some of them had been in and got out, and some of them had, if everything had been known about them, they would have been in, but weren't. I'm mentioning this for two reasons. One, I have a story that I want to tell you, and the other is this, that there are some very extreme situations, and prison is one of them, where it's difficult to be the kind of friend that we've been talking about. The environment invites, encourages, and even seems like demands selfishness and self-serving. But I'm not talking about prison today so that we can talk about folks that aren't here and how they ought to behave when they're in prison and how the prisoners that are in there now ought to be behaving. That's none of our business, really, unless you're called to be a chaplain in a prison or a jail someplace. Then God will give you the insight you need to share with them. What we're talking about today, why we're talking about the prison, is that's the circumstance Joseph was in. And if Joseph can be a friend even in that circumstance, then our circumstances are not that bad. Not as bad as his were. We can manage it too, by the grace of God. Prison is one of those environments. I used to spend a lot of time, back when I was in Seneca County, I did a lot of volunteering at what they call the Seneca County Youth Center. And when I first got to Seneca County, they talked about kids, oh, so-and-so It's out at the youth center again. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound too bad. Ping pong, pool, what, video games, what are they doing? Well, the youth center was jail. That's just the name they gave their juvenile jail in Seneca County, was the Seneca County Youth Center. And I would volunteer out there, and met a lot of people. There was one guy I remember, met him very early on. And he was an older teenager, I think 16, maybe 17. Super bright, very talented artist. A very engaging guy, and articulate, and deeply interested in matters of faith and in his relationship with God. And he was in and out of jail, in and out of jail. I said, why do you keep coming back? He said, well, my mom deals meth out of the basement and has a lot of folks over. He was surrounded by fools. You know what I'm saying? He was surrounded by foolish people, and they brought him trouble. And he had a difficult time staying out of trouble. And he had such a difficult time staying out of trouble that he was now, the last time I saw him was just before he was shipped out to DYS. And if you don't know what DYS is, in Ohio, that stands for the Department of Youth Services, which is our name for youth prison. He was going from county jail to state prison. And he had not been to prison before, but he had folks that he was close to that had been to prison, to DYS before. And he said to me, Scott, you know I'm serious about this faith stuff, but if I don't join a gang in prison, I'm going to be in trouble. I'll need to do that, or I'll be in big trouble. I'll get hurt really bad. To be honest, I cannot remember what I said to him in response to that. I do remember thinking, I don't know what to say, because I've not been to prison. And I don't know what pressure he's going to face. And I talked to some adults in the system that knew more about DYS than I did, and they said it might not be as bad as he says it is, but it's bad. It's bad. And he was going into an environment where he would be pushed to act with selfish and self-serving ways just to survive. I lost track of him. Don't know what happened to him. We do know what happened to Joseph. Joseph was in prison. And prison then is like prison now. It's an environment that pushes people to act in selfish and self-serving ways. But let's see how Joseph acted in prison. Even in prison, even in that environment, Joseph did not play the victim. He didn't spend his time wallowing in self-pity. Woe is me, the world has treated me unfairly. Potiphar treated me unfairly. Potiphar's wife lied about me. This is also, my brothers treated me unfairly. This is also unfair. None of this is my fault. I think I'll just get mad and take care of myself and to heck with everybody else. He did not do that. And he did not use his circumstances as an excuse for behaving badly. Everyone's treated me badly. I'm going to get my own back. I'm going to look out for number one. I'm going to take care of myself. I don't care about anyone else. I'm going to do what I can do to survive. He didn't do that. Instead, he behaved honorably and trustworthily. I have to confess to you, I'm not sure trustworthily is a word, but it sounds right. You know, it sounds, you know what I'm talking about anyway. Throughout all of this, he behaved with honor. And he behaved in a way that earned him the trust of the people around him, rather than fear, skepticism of the people around him. Let's take a look at some more verses here. The warden, so Joseph was sent to jail by Potiphar, and it was Potiphar's jail. He was captain of the guard. He was the ultimate, authority over this particular prison. He was sent to that prison. There was a warden at the prison. The warden put Joseph in charge of all of those held in the prison. He was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Joseph behaved in such a way that the warden said, I can trust this guy completely. I'll let him manage the prison and I won't have to worry about anything. That's how Joseph behaved, with honor in a way that was worthy of trust, even in prison. When Joseph came to them, so he was there, I've been doing this all morning. I keep wanting to say the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker. That's a nursery rhyme. It was the baker and the cupbearer. I don't know why I got a butcher and a candlestick maker in my head today, but I've got a butcher and a candlestick maker in my head. They were sent there as well. And one day after they'd been there for a while, Joseph sees them and saw that they were dejected. Now, this gave Joseph, Joseph's in prison, unjustly, unfairly. He's been treated awfully by his family. He's been treated awfully by his master, by his master's wife. He's in prison. He's a slave. None of it's fair. And yet, he's got enough care and compassion and concern for his fellow prisoners that he sees when they are emotionally upset. And when you think about it, my first thought is, well, yeah, that's pretty cool that he did that. I mean, but they're in prison. Of course they're distressed. Why wouldn't they be dejected, right? Who wouldn't be dejected in prison? Particularly if you'd been a high-ranking person in the king's entourage and now you're in prison. Of course you're going to be dejected. And yet Joseph sees something deeper. There's something more going on in their lives right now than just the fact that they're in prison. That's part of friendship. One of the best friends I know is one of my best friends. His name is Joe. And he has a gift for paying attention to other people and reading what's going on, and if they're feeling bad or if they're feeling happy, if they're feeling hopeful, if they're feeling nervous, and acting in a way that encourages and builds them up. I've seen him do it over and over and over again. When he can see what's going on in a person before that there's some, even before they say it, and he finds out what's going on, and then he acts as a friend with care and compassion for them. And this is Joseph. He sees that they're dejected. And having seen it, he acts on that. He asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "Well, we're in jail." No, it's more than that. But he asked. He didn't just look away. He didn't just see someone in distress and turn his back on them. He didn't say, "Well, if they want me, they know where to find me." He went to them. He asked them, "What's up?" He took the initiative to offer to help shoulder the burdens that they were carrying as a friend. He asked them, "Why do you look so sad today?" They shared why they looked so sad. They had each had a dream. And their dreams were similar. They involved the numbers 3, and they involved, the bakers involved bread, and the cupbearers involved a cup. And they wanted to know what their dreams meant. And they didn't know what their dreams meant. But they knew this wasn't just an ordinary dream. There's something in this for us. And Joseph told them. He interpreted their dreams. And he said to the cupbearer, the 3 means in 3 days you're going to be restored to your position as cupbearer in the king's court. And when that happens, please remember me and tell the king about me in here unjustly. And he said to the baker, the 3 baskets on your head, it means 3 days. And the birds eating the bread out of the basket means Pharaoh's going to cut your head off, impale your body on a stake, and the birds will eat your flesh. He told them both the truth, even when the truth was hard to hear. Easy to tell someone the truth when the truth is good news. Much harder when the truth is hard to hear. He could have said, "You know what, I'm just going to lie to the baker. He's only got 3 days to live anyway. Why shouldn't he enjoy those days?" But he told him the truth. I don't know what that did for the baker. Whether it gave him an opportunity to get right with God before his death. Whether it gave him an opportunity to try to get right with Pharaoh before his death. To make amends for it. But however the baker received that bad news, Joseph told the truth. when it would have been much easier to lie, much easier to conceal. But that's not what friends do. And Joseph was being a friend. Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." I'm taking this a little bit out of context, and I'm going to expand it a little bit more because Joseph was speaking quite literally there. Tell me your dreams, what dreams you had last night. But friends want to hear the dreams of the people around them. They don't want to just tell people what they're going to do and how great life's going. When I do this and when I do that, and here's my plans and here's where all this is going. A good friend wants to know what you're dreaming of, what your hopes for the future are, where you'd like to be in 5 or 10 years, what you imagine the world being like down the road. A friend is interested in knowing your dreams, not just in sharing their dreams. And that's how Joseph was with the cupbearer and the baker in circumstances that were awful and were constantly pushing people to behave selfishly, but he behaved honorably. He behaved in a way that earned him trust. In prison, we see Joseph not having friends. We don't see Joseph having friends in prison. There's no evidence that anyone in that prison was Joseph's friend. The warden gave him a lot of work to do and a lot of responsibility. That shows a level of respect and trust in him. But, the warden was getting paid, Joseph was doing the work, right? The cupbearer, who had his dream interpreted, could look forward to this thing coming up with the Pharaoh getting restored, and all Joseph asked him was, "Please tell the Pharaoh about me." The cupbearer didn't say a word about him to the Pharaoh. He just forgot about him. He wasn't thinking about Joseph. Joseph was just some guy in prison, not his friend who he wanted to help get out of prison. And of course, the baker wasn't going to be helpful in that situation and couldn't be helpful in that situation. But there was no reciprocity. There's no evidence that he was receiving love and friendship in return. So we don't see Joseph having friends. We see Joseph being a friend, even in unjust circumstances. Excuse me. Even in unjust circumstances. Even when the friendship isn't reciprocated. There's a story I want to tell you. It's a very old story, and there are variations of it from a lot of different traditions. And as near as I can tell, no one really knows exactly where this story originated. I love this story, though. It's short, so you'll love it too. Blevins is almost done. We can get home, go to McClure's, it'll be good. There was a holy man out in the wilderness. There was a flash flood. Waters were filling up, and he saw in an area where a pool of water was filling up between some rocks that there was a scorpion trapped in the water. And it was trying to climb out, but it couldn't get a grip, it couldn't climb out, and it was going to drown. And so the holy man reached down to rescue the scorpion and get him out of the water, but the scorpion stung him. Pulled back. He reaches down again, trying to rescue the scorpion, stings him again. He reaches down again, trying to rescue the scorpion, and the scorpion stings him again. And this keeps happening. And then one of the disciples of this holy man says, says, "Master, why do you keep trying to rescue that scorpion when it keeps stinging you?" And the holy man said this. He said, it's the scorpion's nature to sting, but it's my nature to save. Just because the scorpion doesn't change his nature, that doesn't mean that I should change my nature. This was the attitude, the identity that Joseph was living out. He was surrounded by people whose identity had nothing to do with being a friend of prisoners, had nothing to do with being a friend of slaves. Had to do with selfishness and self-interest and covering their own backs and taking care of their own selves. That was their nature. Joseph's nature was to be a friend. Joseph's nature was to be part of salvation for the people of the world around him. And just because they didn't change their nature in response to his good deeds and gestures of love and friendship, just because they didn't change their nature, that didn't mean that Joseph should change his nature and adopt their attitudes of selfishness and self-care and self-preservation. By the grace of God and the power of the Holy Spirit, it is in our nature to save. Jesus came to save. He's given us this mission in this world to make disciples, to share the good news of reconciliation with God through Jesus Christ, of forgiveness of sins, to be a part of God's work of salvation in the world. That is what we're called to. And God has designed us and is making us, and by the power of His Holy Spirit, enabling us, helping us to be friends to the wise and to the fools, to the sinners and to the righteous, to love sacrificially, to speak the truth, even when it hurts, to do that with the folks around us, even when they don't return it, even if they don't return it. Because it's not a transaction. We're not going to do these things for them so that they will do them for us. We do these things for them because that's our nature as followers of Jesus Christ. To be a friend. That's our identity. To be a friend. And that's the question that Joseph's story, as he's in prison at this time, puts in front of us. Will we follow Joseph's example and be a friend no matter what the circumstances are? It's tough to be friends. Tough to make friends. It's a hard thing to do. But here's the thing. Part of the reason we can be a friend in unjust circumstances, that we can be a friend to others even when it's not reciprocated, is because Jesus is our friend. And He always loves. He always cares. He always listens. He always builds up. He always encourages. It is His nature to save, and He is always saving us. That is His nature, and He is our friend. So even when the people around us aren't being friendly to us, even when they're not being our friends, we have a friend who is always our friend. We can always turn to Him, and He will always give us what we need to be a friend to others. In Jesus' name, amen.